Times that we've been late.
Hello, good evening. Happy Thursday. We are 1 minute early. Yay for us.
For all the times that we've been late, we're making up 1 minute.
We're pretty timely. I'm not going to lie. We're definitely dressage people and we are pretty timely. So tonight we are talking about inside rein and outside rein. We are talking about my independent seat webinar happening on Sunday. We are talking about my canter cookie recipe training last night. And we are letting our puppy run free. So if you hear anything happening in the background,
if one of us jumps up quickly and wildly from the chair, everything is fine. We just have to get the dog.
If you see my plants tip over in the background, it is probably our puppy. So go ahead, type in the chat. Let us know that you're here and you can see us. And what has been exciting in our week this week? You got to ride in a clinic.
I took lessons. That's always great. It's always great.
What did you work
on? Letting go without letting go.
That's a hard thing. How do you do that?
Just play with your fingers and just release those fingers. And then the contact, and don't throw it away and have loose floppy reins. You can't hold, you can't give away. But you do have to just soften your body without losing that contact, without making the reins floppy.
And I think you have to know when is the right moment to soften. Because if you soften in the wrong moment and your horse just braces and puts their head up again. So you have to kind of soften slowly. And I think it's always so important too that you stay connected in your seat and your core. Because that's what I see riders do so often is when they soften their hand, they tip forward and come off their seat. And then, of course, the horse...
I'm guilty of that. I don't engage my core, and so I flop over.
No more flopping over. Especially not on your horse, because she's like 17.3 and gigantic and super powerful.
And 3 huge gates, boy. I mean, it is all that.
Yeah. So, but it's so good to have help and have lessons because you don't realize what you're
what the horse has trained me to do.
Yes. And we're going to refrain from telling them about how you were told to post the trot differently.
Oh, I didn't hear it. I was wearing the C coach. I couldn't hear anything. And he doesn't like my ear tech, which I think are fantastic.
Yes, he likes the C coach. The ear tech, so let us know in the chat, like what coaching audio system you like to use. We have used a C coach forever, or no, a Comtech, original Comtech.
You did the Comtech.
The Comtech's great. Then the C coach, and now we have, what's it called, an ear tech?
Ear tech.
Yeah. And the audio quality is really good on that.
It's crystal clear.
But it's kind of clunky. Like
it's
the box
clunky.
is really
the headset
big.
Isn't the most comfortable, but the sound quality, I can't beat it.
But you have to have you have to be able to hear your instructor. Like those headsets are a really good investment because if you can't hear, like the first day, you're like, can't even hear what he's saying.
I know, you had to tell me about the lesson later because you were next to him.
So anyways, get a good ear set so that you can hear your instructor. The other thing that we've done sometimes at horse shows is just use like cell phone and AirPods.
Yeah.
So that's like a last resort if everything else isn't working.
But you only wear one.
Oh yeah. That is. Otherwise it's a new rule. You can't have 2 ears anymore. So anyways, this week's YouTube video, let us know if you've watched it yet, but it was a video about what your inside rein and your outside rein should be doing and the purpose and the function of each rein. And I know a lot of people seem to have really liked that video. So what's your 2 cents on what's the job of your inside rein? What's the job of your outside rein?
When I try and simplify the whole thing, outside rein does everything, inside rein supples.
Fair enough.
I mean, the outside rein turns, it regulates the tempo, it gets the horse's head down, it makes the frame, right? And the inside rein, it's like good cop, bad cop. And the inside rein's like, no, we're all friends here. And you keep the suppling.
And the outside rein is bad cop?
Right. Come here, put your head down, turn over there, go faster, go slower. Inside rein's like, no, we're friends.
All right. Our next video is going to be called Good Cop, Bad Cop.
Okay. In the chat,
that can be your video.
In the chat, then, does anybody groove with that? Good cop, bad cop.
I'm sure they do.
Well, we have 3 cops that ride with us. Well, they're ex. They're all retired, and they said that the good cop, bad cop is actually a thing. It's not just on TV.
Okay, we have lots of questions, so let's dive into the questions.
Okay, let's stop talking about TV.
Betsy says, how do you know the correct rein length to keep the line of communication open? It's a good question. How do you know the correct rein length?
Well, first, it varies. Okay, your first level horse isn't going to have the same length of rein as your pre-St. George horse. Okay, so let's just start there. Then you want to start. What I do is I just take the slack out of the reins and start from there. Get rid of the slack, have contact, and start from there. And if it supples and you can put a little pressure and get the head to come down, then you build. But the first one is just get the slack out of the reins.
And make sure that your horse doesn't stop or run backwards,
right,
or that they just accept the contact.
Yeah.
But I agree. It changes. I think you're better off to have your reins like a little bit shorter and your hands together, because if your reins are too long, then
you have to come out of position to take up the slack.
Right. And you're like leaning to the side or leaning too far back, or your reins are flopping and then you're pulling and all of that. But it is always important that you ride from the leg to the hand and that you shorten your reins methodically and not all at once. So a lot of times I see riders like shorten their reins and then just pull back on their horse, and the horse is like, what the heck? So you do always want to shorten your reins, ride to that shorter rein, shorten them a little bit more, and really remember that it's back to front riding and the suppling with your bad cop, good cop, because you don't want more pressure when your reins shorten. That's a good way to say it. You don't want to have more pressure just because you've shortened your reins. You want your horse to compress and soften and give to that shorter rein length.
Right. There's a comment there from Leonard that said, I'm always leery that short reins pull on my horse's mouth. The reins don't pull on the horse's mouth. You do. And when Charlotte Desjardins came and did and she says it a lot, she goes, short reins win gold medals because that's where the collection is. The thing is, the horse has to understand that the leg means go and the reins come here, and then you get collection and you compress them. It isn't short reins and pull. It's come from behind, get round, be active, and then the reins aren't pulling.
Yeah.
It's not the short reins that do it.
And it's also about riding from your independent seat, which is why I'm doing a webinar on Sunday on the independent seat, because your goal is that you're riding from your leg in your seat and your hands are just together in front and doing nothing. So when we see the top riders riding their Olympic horses, if you really watch their hands, you can see little like wrist, little ring finger, but you never see like flopping hands, pulling back hands. They're just here with very subtle communication. And when you think about it, we have a piece of metal in their mouth. So there's no reason that we should be like pulling on them.
Right. I mean, the mouth is a sensitive organ, and you want to keep it that way. And you keep it that way by not hanging in your horse's mouth and making it dull.
Okay, Heather's question is rein aids with a horse who's extremely light in the mouth. This is another good question.
That's a tough one. Some horses, horses are different, just like people. And a horse that likes a light contact, it's a trickier ride because I like a horse to take it a little bit more.
But I think if you have a horse that's light, you want to keep your hands quieter and steady. If you have a horse that's heavy, you might have to like vibrate, kind of shake them off. But if you have a horse that's light, it's like really establish that steady contact and ride from your leg to your hand.
But your point's really well made there. You got to be really super steady with your hands on a light, sensitive horse, because you do a little too much and they're already backwards away from the bit. So your really elastic contact becomes more and more important the lighter the horse would like the contact.
Yeah. And I had a horse that I trained at Grand Prix, Catalina. You remember Catalina?
Oh, yeah.
But when she was a young horse, she would not take the bit. Like she was just fold her neck up and then like the reins would be slack and you had nothing. And so when she was young, we rode her in a plastic bit that was straight. It didn't have a joint in it. It was just a straight plastic bit. And that she started to like push into a little bit.
I hear nothing. I'm worried.
He's outside.
Okay.
The dog. We're looking for the dog.
Sorry,
He's on his
I'm
patio. And then I did a lot of inside leg to outside rein connection because I wanted her to kind of lean into the bridle. And then eventually I got where she accepted a double bridle and we did the Grand Prix, but it was definitely a long process. And it is in some ways harder with a horse that curls and won't touch the bit than a horse that's stiff or strong. So let us know in the chat if you have a horse that's too light or too strong or fussy in between, because they all start out different. Some of them are heavy on one rein or the other. And our job is that we want to get 50-50 even rein contact, the weight of a soda can.
Yeah, ultimately the goal is that the horse is even in both reins. But I mean, that takes a while because they're left-handed or right-hoofed or whatever, just like us. So
yeah. Okay, let's see. Emma says, how do you use the outside rein to direct the shoulder, especially in leg yields? All the horses I ride fall through the shoulder. I've been suspecting it's probably a me problem. What do you do with the outside rein in a leg yield?
Contain the energy and not let it come through that shoulder.
Where do you place your outside rein?
The right's to the right. If you're leg yielding to the right, just to the right of the withers.
Right by the withers. Yeah. Not across, but just right by the withers.
Yeah. If it's the outside rein, it's because it has to be there to receive.
And then, so if you're doing your leg yield and your horse is just falling to the rail, ride the leg yield staircase where you go leg yield straight to get that respect of the outside rein.
And when you ride straight there, you're going to need your outside rein and outside leg.
Or you might even need to push them the other way. Like if they're really bulging through the shoulder, you might have to push them back off of the wall. If that's not working in your leg yield, then you need to go back to the diamond exercise. That's what I'd recommend. Okay, Sharon, I asked a question regarding wrists and got the video of the scrambled eggs. It's a game changer. So much nicer, alleviates pulling, no additional questions. What is the scrambled eggs analogy? This is his. I'm not going to steal it from him.
The whole idea behind the scrambled eggs was to get the rider's forearm. Oh,
we can't see your beautiful eyes.
What eyes? I'm blind. Anyway, so when you scramble an egg, if you can scramble it fast, when you scramble a leg, if you can scramble it fast, your forearm has to be soft. If your forearm is tight, you can't move your wrist fast. So that's the whole idea behind the scrambled eggs. And I was making eggs and I thought of that. And then I talked to people about it. And then they were like, yes, it makes my forearm softer because the motion of your hand isn't like a fork and you're stirring it with your thumb and your pointer because your thumb and your pointer hold the rein. You're really going to supple with your fingers, your ring finger and your wrist inward. Okay. But the idea of scrambling eggs makes your forearm soft and then you ride with your lats and your shoulder, which is how you're supposed to ride. So the scrambled egg was just a way to get people to let go in the forearm muscle.
Okay, and then that brings up Stacy's question. So she says, when scrambling eggs, does your wrist break or does your wrist just rotate a teeny bit?
Yes to both of those. If your horse will soften in the jaw from this, then that's all you do. And if you need more, then you want to be able to see the pinky, the fingernail on your pinky. You rotate that in and up and then forward and your knuckles face forward. You don't want this. It's in, up, forward, in, up, forward. And that's how it's different than the scrambled eggs. The scrambled eggs, your thumb and your pointer. But for your suppling of your horse, right, you've got rolling knuckles, right? That's first. And then that wrist turns inward. So you see your fingernail on the pinky, and that's in, up, forward. Knuckles face forward. You don't want that.
But so Stacy, if your judge is commenting that your wrist is doing something weird, you're probably bending your wrist like this and
getting
holding it
stuck
there. So like this is, remember, straight line from your elbow to your horse's mouth. That's like neutral. That's where you want to be most of the time. So you're in neutral, your wrist is straight, and then you do a little like fingers first, then a little supple, but then go back to straight. Because if you go like this and break at your wrist, then you're ineffective and you're weak, and it does look funny. Or some riders do this also with their wrists.
And the other one people will do is have their knuckles face down.
Right. Or piano hands.
Yeah.
Which is really bad because the two bones in your forearms then are crossed and you can't supple. So all good questions. Let's see. Nancy says, how do you know when you're successful with half-halts and the use of the outside rein? Good question.
So without more tension, without more weight in your hands, you can adjust the tempo. Because you've achieved some sort of balance there, right? And if you increase the tempo and you don't have more weight in your hands and you can bring that back and you don't have more weight in your hands, your half-halt's working.
I would also say, like, so the purpose of a half-halt is to get your horse's attention and rebalance your horse. So I would feel like my half-halt is successful if I feel like I can get my horse more on my seat and then soften a little bit the outside rein without the horse running or going on the forehand or losing their attention.
Or coming slow when you bring them back.
Yeah.
Or coming heavy in your hands when you bring them back.
Oh, but half-halts, that's like such a whole, we could talk all night about half-halts. And they're definitely something that half-halts evolve as your horse becomes more and more advanced. Like a half-halt on a 4-year-old is very different than a half-halt on a Grand Prix horse. So that's like a whole nother topic. Let's see. Barb says she loved our video. Tough to find the balance. Oh, this is another good question. So the balance between the steadying outside rein and the bending inside rein. That's a good question.
If you're not straight at the withers, if the first few vertebrae aren't straight coming out of the withers, it's not good. The flexion needs to be up by the third vertebrae, just where you see the eye. So the balancing act is to keep enough outside rein and suppling with the inside rein that when you make the turn, that the horse doesn't break in the neck down by the withers, that the break is just up there at the third vertebra, that otherwise you're overbent. I mean, if it breaks at the withers, now you're on the outside front leg.
And it's always feeling that, but there is, so like if you're just riding straight, if you're riding straight down the rail, you want to have your horse's neck straight. And ideally you have equivalent weight in your left rein and your right rein. Then if you're going onto a circle line and you want your horse to bend, you do need to a little bit allow. Wouldn't you agree? You need to little bit
the
allow.
Outside side is going to be longer.
Right.
Yeah, but that's still one bend from croup to pole.
Right.
And behind the saddle, it doesn't bend. Underneath the saddle, it bends a little bit. So that little bit that the horse bends underneath the saddle has to match in the neck. If you take and bend the neck more than what you can get in the thorax, right? Then you're overbent. And sure, you have to allow with the outside rein a little bit because the distance from the ribs to the mouth are going to be longer on the outside than on the inside.
Right. Because if you go to bend your horse and you don't allow a little bit through the outside rein,
then you're stopping them or counterbending them.
But what we also see happen a lot is riders just throw the outside rein away or do the famous steering wheel turn where the outside hand comes up, over, and across.
Right. And then the shoulder runs sideways.
So it is, it is always a balance of using your inside and your outside rein. Technically, if you're on a circle or a shoulder in or a half pass or anything, you should have slightly more contact in your outside rein. But it's something like you don't want your horse just leaning through the outside rein. So I mean, that's what's so tricky. I sent an email out earlier this week and I asked people like, what are you most struggling with? And everyone was like the contact, the connection, because
it's hard.
It's really hard. And it's something that you want to be able to change, and like your horse's neck should feel supple. Like you could bend left, you could bend right, you could make it lower, you could bring it up, you could take a little more contact, you could put slack in your rein. Like it should be such a dynamic thing. And I think sometimes riders just like their horse's head is the pull's the highest point, they're on the bit, they're stiff, they're immovable, and that's not what you want it to feel like.
Correct. You do not want stiff and he's back and eating something.
So anyways, what else do we have on my list? Oh yeah, so last night I did a canter cookie recipe training. Let me know if you were there last night. It was really fun.
You have one comment. Barbara was there. She thought it was great.
Yeah. So for those of you who are in the canter challenge, if you haven't watched it yet, please watch it and let me know if you liked it. But basically what we did was we took a bunch of like different types of horses and riders, and then I tried to come up with a basic formula for how you plan your ride.
A recipe.
And Herman helped me. And then we picked different exercises based on that horse and rider. So at the top of our recipe, do you remember what we had at the top of our recipe?
No, that was yesterday.
At the top of our recipe, we had a rider position focus and a rhythm focus.
Right. And we moved that. We went to position first because it related to
Because, I think in every ride, you do need to always have an overarching thing that you're checking in your position, and then understanding the rhythm. And then we had a warm-up section, and then we had 2 to 3 working exercises. And kind of every horse needs a little bit of a different recipe. And I use the analogy of when you're baking cookies, because I used to bake cookies with my grandma. Pretty much every cookie recipe starts with flour, sugar, and butter. And then you put different things in based on like what kind of cookie you want. Like, what's your favorite kind of cookie?
The soft chocolate chips.
The soft chocolate chips?
Soft. Just soft.
I thought you were going to say the peanut butter blossoms. Those are my favorite. With the peanut butter and then the
kiss. Yep, those are good.
Yeah. Let us know what is your favorite cookie. But we were going off the analogy that every horse is a little different flavor. And so they need different ingredients for the recipe to work. And I feel like the warm-up section should usually be the same. I always try to follow pretty much the same format for the warm-up.
And then you can gather information about how you're going to then make your lesson.
Yes.
Or in this case, the recipe.
Yeah.
What ingredients, what spices you'll be adding to get your cookie.
And then you can put in, different exercises. And as you get more sophisticated, you can try to put in more ingredients, and hopefully your cookie still comes out well. But we're going to be doing more of that, I think, in strides, and then also in boot camp coming up in June, because I definitely feel like one of the biggest pain points for all of you is figuring out, how do you have a plan? Like, how do you structure your ride? And if you don't have the luxury of getting a lesson every single day, that's hard. And it's definitely where we have, since we've worked with hundreds of thousands of horses and riders, okay, maybe not hundreds and thousands, tens of thousands, we can tell looking at the horse, like, okay, they need to do this, and then this, and then this, and understand how the exercises build on each other. I was in Utah over the weekend teaching a clinic, which was fun. I always love going to teach that clinic in Utah, but it was just so cool because we had riders from basically beginning training level, working just on rhythm and rider position, all the way up to the FEI. And it's so cool to be able to, understand what that horse needs, the horse's temperament, what the rider needs, put together a little recipe, and then hopefully bake a nice, delicious cookie by the end. And not burn it, right?
So I'm lost here.
He's lost.
I'm in the cookie. I'm dreaming of cookies now. But this one was good from Barbara. Preheating your oven is warming up your horse.
Ooh,
That's
that's a good one,
that is
Barb.
good. We're gonna steal that. Give you no credit, but we're stealing it.
We're going to continue building on this
whole recipe concept.
recipe analogy because it kind of works.
I've been talking about it as a recipe forever. I mean, because it is.
But you haven't done it as a cookie recipe.
No, not as a cookie, just as baking in general. Just baking. Because all my analogies are food related.
I don't know. I don't know that riding and cooking is like.
They're the same in my mind.
No, they are not. They are not. There's very little risk when you're baking cookies. I mean,
what if they're bad?
Well, it's not like you're going to fall off and end up in the hospital.
Well, if you make them with that, you could poison yourself.
And it's not like your cookies have a mind of their own.
But you may not want to eat them. That would be terrible.
That's true.
But I liken riding to baking all the time.
Yes. Anyways, don't forget to come to the webinar on Sunday on the independent seat. And yeah, I do appreciate all of your well wishes. Now everyone knows that I've had my back surgery, it was so bad because it was like right at the beginning of the canter challenge and I could barely stand up. And I was like, this is going to be terrible, but you're a very good caretaker. And we muddled through and I'm feeling much better. So shall I tell the funny story though? What's the funny story?
That I have to ride your horse and you're like, oh my God, you're ruining my horse.
Yes.
I have to ride her horse and I don't do it the way she would do it. So
don't listen to me.
There's stuff.
But it's okay. We're both growing and learning.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm anxious.
And we both lived through it.
Yes.
You see, there's still a few more weeks to go. But the horse is much better.
Yes. Okay. Well, anyways, yeah. So I got a new horse like right before I got broken and can't ride. So anyways, it's all good.
And there's a dog now.
Yes. And I got a puppy right before I like couldn't walk for 2 weeks.
And I was in Idaho when it happened.
But here's the thing. I feel like everything in your life happens for a reason. It forces you to change. It forces you to be grateful. It forces you to learn new things. And we've had a lot of people share about their struggles and their journey. And there are a few people that I was like, wow, I have nothing to complain about. Like it could always be worse, right?
It could always be, it's always be grateful.
Yeah.
I am blessed.
Yes.
My life is blessed.
Yeah.
I have just nothing but goodness in it.
Yeah. And don't take it for granted, right? Like your health is everything. And it's one of those things that you don't realize how lucky you are that you can get up and move around and get on a horse until you can't. And then you're like, oh gosh, the dog has brought something. So anyways, I appreciate our community. I appreciate everyone's support. And I also think that it's important to share sometimes the truth and the hard things, and that it's not always just rainbows and butterflies, because we all go through tough times, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
What doesn't kill you doesn't kill you.
Yes. So anyways, happy Thursday, and we will see you all next Thursday. Bye.